So today I'm going to go over how I created this pretty heavy Neuro bass in Eurorack. I was kind of shocked. I was just originally just looking to try and use the analog kick as some sort of bass source so that I could put my kick back into the Elektron Syntakt for a live set. And then I tried to run it through Versio and got some like really crazy shit. So I want to show how the analog kick combined with a Versio, After Later Audio Smoosher, and then just any envelope you want can create some really intense bass sounds. So let's hear how it sounds on its own. So anyways, that sounds pretty cool. So I'm going to quickly go over what's happening here, and then we'll try and like recreate this from scratch. So the analog kick doesn't really have like pitch control, but it has this weird fundamental interrupt CV where you can like send it a gate and it seems to change the pitch. I don't know. There isn't a manual for this module, so I can't really explain what it does, but it can be used to create variations. And so then I've got that running into Darv here, which is just acting as a ADSR. From there, it's running into the Versio, which I've got the Ruina firmware running on this right now. So that gives you a bunch of different flavors of distortion. These two impact the frequency of the distortion. So 6 changes which frequencies are emphasized through the drive, and then 3 is actually a notch filter. Notch filters are often used when creating Neuro basses. So by tweaking this, you can get a lot of different kind of sounds out of it. Anyways, we'll rebuild this in a minute here. From there, it's going into the After Later Audio Smoosher, which is a stereo compressor. So I've just got the stereo outs of the Versio going straight into there. And then that from there is just going into the cockpit mixer. So I'm just going to unpatch the VCA and envelope here, and then just turn off the Versio and the compressor so we can see how the bass sounds. The initial sound just straight out of the analog kick sounds. So right now I just have this kind of set up to drum. So you've got the fundamental knob, which controls the overall pitch of the analog kick, and then the contour controls the built-in envelope. But it also seems to have an impact on the pitch of the sound. So I kind of tweaked these to get the note that I wanted for the tracks that I was working on. So if we turn this back on, you can hear that both the contour and the fundamental are impacting the pitch. Again, since there's no manual for this module, I don't know if this is normal behavior or not. So if we just move this over 1 second. You can hear how this is supposed to sound. I had the trigger going straight into the Darv because I was using that envelope. So when you have nothing in the trigger input, and you set the fundamental low, which is actually high, you get a droning sound, which is great for what we're trying to do. If you're trying to make a kick, obviously that's not awesome. Anyway, so that's what the bass sound sounds like. The only reason I'm using this is because it's what I have on hand, and it's kind of unstable, which creates interesting results. But you could use any kind of 808 style module or just like a regular oscillator. Versio's kind of where the magic is. So I'm just putting the trigger back into the envelope. Okay, so now I'm just going to route the analog kick back through the VCA and envelope here. So now we have envelope control. So let me stop this. The reason I'm doing this is because you don't get the range of tones out of this analog kick if you're also using the contours, the envelope. I find it more limited. So if you set this up so it's just kind of droning, you can use a different envelope and get a lot more control. And then usually I'll just use like a tuner in Ableton to tune this to something that I want. So the analog kick's not a good option if you want to be able to pitch this around. I kind of made do with it because I just hit the root note, and I'm using more of the sound design aspect to drive the bass rather than the melody. But this would probably be better with, I don't know, something that actually tracks pitch properly. So I don't really know what interval this creates, but it pitches the fundamental up when you plug not even a gate, actually, because I'm not sending anything with ears. It just seems like when you have anything connected here, it repitches it. Which for me is kind of useful because when I'm doing a bass line now, I get 2 notes out of it, which is better than nothing. I know that's kind of weird, but it works. I'm just going to leave that disconnected for now. And so right now you can hear it's just kind of like a distorted sine wave. And a lot of the magic is in this compressor. So right now when you turn it on, it's just kind of smushing the sound into nothing. But then when we start adding in distortion through Versio, makes a huge difference. So if we extend this envelope, so that's the uncompressed sound. If we add distortion, so without the compression, it's just kind of really out of control. So Smoosher really kind of smashes everything together and just tames it a bit. So I don't want to lose the low end, so I'm not blending in too much of the mix here on this distortion. This number 6 parameter here is actually controlling how the drive is being emphasized. Oops. 4 bands, I think. Low, mid-low, and then high. I think there's 4 bands. I'll have to look at the manual. But the further up you go here, the higher the frequency. And if you have all the way up, you lose a lot of the low end. Whereas down here, you're emphasizing the low end, so compressor, because this is being absolutely slammed, helps keep it balanced as you're moving through this. But either way, you want to keep the mix down low so you can keep the low end. It's almost like it's being filtered. So if you want a more subtle distorted sub, you would bring the drum. This envelope snappy sounds coming through seem to and you can really get that like typical Neuro bass movement. That too, you get a lot of variety out of it. So another thing And then the other thing that I've got going on here as well is I have a gate being sent out of the Tempe to randomly hit the FSU, which like maxes out the distortion. It just adds more variety to the sound. And then something that's cool to do while you're performing is playing with this envelope, because you can get like long sustain sounds. You can cut it out completely, so it's a really quick way to like basically mute the bass, other than these like kind of glitchy pops and cracks that come through. And the envelope release time drastically changes how this sounds. So you can kind of play with multiple things at once. Anyway, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I just thought that was like really cool to get these kinds of sounds out of Eurorack modules, and like not even expensive modules other than the Versio.